Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 73rd Annual Maria Moors Cabot Prizes, the oldest awards in international journalism. I'm Nick Lemon. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Journalism here at Columbia. Each year, the prize honors outstanding journalism in and about the Americas. Tonight's prize winners are journalists who are devoting their careers to understanding and writing on a sometimes overlooked yet key part of our world. Welcome. I'd like to note for future reference, because this is the 73rd iteration of the awards, we have a big birthday coming up 2 years from now. Next year's Cabot Awards, 74th, will be wonderful as always, and then the 75th in the fall of 2013 will be incredible in ways yet to be devised, so I can't be specific about it, but please mark it on your calendar because it really is a wonderful and meaningful anniversary coming up. I'd like first to take the opportunity to recognize some of the special people here tonight. Please stand and we'll hold our applause until everyone's been acknowledged. First, let us welcome members of the Cabot family who are in attendance. Please stand, but don't applaud. Their leadership and continued support enables us to pay tribute to the best writing in and about the Americas. Next, I'd like to welcome past Cabot medalists, as well as members of the Cabot Board, a renowned group of scholars and journalists who contribute their expertise to choose our winners every year. Your hard work is much appreciated. Please stand. And I would just put in a special shout out. I don't know if anyone here is a Gilbert and Sullivan fan, but if you remember in HMS Pinafore, the character who polished up the handles so faithfully that now he's the ruler of the Queen's Navee, in that spirit, one of our Cabot board members did such a good job that they made him provost of the university. That's John Coatsworth, who's here tonight. So special congratulations, John, and I'm sure it's your service to the Cabot Awards that is responsible for this honor, so we're proud of you. I'd also like to acknowledge the Cabot professor at the Journalism School, John Dingus, and the Journalism School's Cabot scholars and other international students who are assisted every year by our international scholarship fundraising. International students now make up a third of our student body, in fact, a little bit more than a third, something that gives us great pride. I hope that some of you will get a moment to talk to these students this evening. They're a truly impressive group of people. Please stand. Finally, I want to welcome the members of the diplomatic community who are in attendance tonight. The Costa Rican ambassador to the United Nations, Eduardo Ulibarri, who won a Cabot Medal in 1996, was here and I believe has now left. Carlos Sada, the Consul General of Mexico, is here. Danielle Knowles of the Quebec Government Office is also here. And last, I'd like to recognize the individuals whose donations have supported this year's international scholarships at the Journalism School. You'll find the names of these generous donors listed on a separate page in your program. We're incredibly thankful for their generosity and dedication to the Journalism School's programs. And now it's my pleasure to offer a toast with an imaginary glass. I hope you will enjoy both your dinner and the conversations you have tonight. We will be back with awards, which is why we're all here. But meanwhile, enjoy dinner and salud. And you can applaud now. Welcome back. I'm mostly here to introduce the president of Columbia University, Lee Bollinger. Every year I say just a word or two about how things are at our school, and this really will be just a word or two. The first thing I'd say is, touching wood as I say it, our school is in healthy and very good shape just as an institution. We are mindful of how lucky a thing that is, particularly because many news organizations are in very challenged circumstances. So we as a school are mindful of our responsibility to be as strong and solid institutionally as we possibly can be, and then to use that strong and solid position to be a loud, clear voice for journalism and press freedom in the world. We hope that everybody here will think of themselves as part of our community and will accept the invitations that you all get to come and speak at the school, including our Cabot winners last night, and will let us know how you think we can be helpful to journalism and allied causes everywhere. The other thing I'd say is our school gets ever more international year by year, a process that I suppose started with the establishment of the Cabot Awards. Without any particular management of the process, every year we inch up a little bit more in percent non-U.S. in our school, and it is a wonderful thing for us, and just personally is a wonderful thing for me. I thought I was very worldly and sophisticated until I had to sit and run classrooms in which sometimes most of the students are not from the United States. And just the demographics themselves, like all forms of diversity, are kind of automatically educational because you catch things coming out of your mouth, thoughts forming in your head, and then you realize, oh, I just said something incredibly provincial and narrow in its perspective. So we treasure the global reach of the school for many, many reasons. It helps us overseas, and it helps us at home, and helps spread what I think is a good influence for the school. I say with a little bit of embarrassment that in the last cycle, since I stood up here last year, very, very, very deep into my career in journalism, I made my first foray into Latin American journalism by doing an assignment there for the New Yorker, which you should be seeing soon if you read the magazine. And spending a little time down there is very impressive regarding the reputation of the Cabot Awards. Everybody in journalism knows about the Cabot Awards and sees them as an honor and a thing to strive for, and something that act as a force for the good and true in journalism. So for all of us here, it's wonderfully inspiring to see the effect we think we're having, and a lot of that comes from the distinction of you, this year's and past year's award winners. So thanks very much for coming to be with us and for the work you do. I would hazard a superlative that would be very hard to check, or I'll put it as a question. Has there ever been a president of a major university who was as intensely interested in journalism and the press as Lee Bollinger, the president of Columbia University? I certainly can't think of one, and it's been incredibly lucky and happy for the School of Journalism and for me personally to be able to go about our business at a time when Lee has been president of this university. He grew up in a newspaper family, though not a journalist himself, a constitutional lawyer. His specialty has been media law and First Amendment law. And then ever since he's been president, he's been made it very clear how important journalism is to him, in the first instance in the form of the journalism school itself. Then he wrote a wonderful book about the press, and then as step 3, he started a very ambitious and admirable effort to promote press freedom all over the world, which many of us here are to some extent involved with. So I hope you'll give a very, very warm, and he deserves the warmth, welcome to Lee Bollinger, the President of Columbia.
Thank you very much, Nick. Just a few remarks before calling up everyone to bestow these prizes and awards, which are so important, as Nick said. Thanks to the Cabot family, as always. These are very, very important awards and very important part of Columbia University. And I come to this every year. I do not go to every single prize that is awarded in the university. I do so because of the extreme significance of this, both for the university, but more importantly for the world. Recognize Nick, there couldn't be a better dean of journalism school, couldn't be a better journalist, couldn't be a better friend than Nick, and I think we all recognize that. His reputation throughout the university is superb and beyond. It's superb, and the faculty that works with Nick is just great. I'm just so happy that the journalism school is thriving. Josh Friedman is my teacher every year on what is happening in Latin America. I really have benefited greatly from the sort of background and remarks that he prepares for me each year. So I think that just reading through the things that Josh wrote and reading the papers about what happens in Mexico and how journalists are attacked and kidnapped and murdered, and then reading about how this has spread to Central America and then to the countries along the border. It's horrifying. I mean, one just can't imagine what life must be like. And you feel this just incredible sense of almost a helplessness in the face of what is a truly barbaric behavior, and the consequences for the press are just so great. Nick is right, I care enormously about the press. I care about the press just like I care about the law and just like I care about universities. I think there are institutions that have evolved over time that play an extremely important role in making civilized society. And I think of the press as foremost, or certainly among the foremost institutions. And to see this kind of attack, to read about it, to see pictures of it is just staggeringly awful. It is, however, too common, I think, in today's world to view this not only as it's in its horrifying criminality, but to see it as a problem of human rights and freedom of the press in the affected countries. All that is true. But in today's world, as everything becomes more and more interconnected, economically, culturally, in terms of our communications capacities, in terms of the issues that we all face collectively. In this world, it is a crime really also against the free flow of information throughout the world that we desperately need to create a decent and good global society. So we need to start thinking about this, I think, not only as human rights in other countries, including freedom of the press in other countries. We need to think about this as really breaking down our capacity to be able to have the information we need in the world about incredibly important things like the drug trade and organized crime and the ways in which this operates in the world and affects our ability to do the things we are now capable of doing. So that's the first point. I think we need a very great conceptual change in the way we see this. And the second point, and this would be the last thing I would say, is that we really need to think about how we are going to make this case for freedom of the press in the world as we find it. A year ago, Nick, Joel Simon, others around here were at the little conference we had, and the Minister of Law of Singapore came and spoke about why they have a very constricted by our standards system of free press. And he was very direct and challenging. This was not just an authoritarian government wanting to control the society. It was a direct challenge to the United States on the basis that you have, he said, a dysfunctional political system. You have a dysfunctional political system that encourages intolerant viewpoints, in which people cannot compromise, in which institutions are not respected, in which you cannot hope over time to succeed. And the reasons why you are in that state have a lot to do with the level of protection for freedom of speech and press that you have created. President Correa of Ecuador was here just a month ago. He made a similar kind of argument. The press is undeserving of any kind of press freedom. Citizens are being fooled by the falsehoods that they spread. I am acting on behalf of the interests of citizens. We know that across the world, the idea of a free press and its role is not accepted in many, many countries and nations and regions where we really have a big interest in making sure that we develop this. And we're not working on that. If you look at the recent trade agreement with Colombia or Panama, you won't find any mention of freedom of the press as a value that has been inserted in there. You'll find something about labor, you'll find something, but not about freedom of the press. Beyond that, we have not, I think, developed all the arguments that we need to make about the relationship of information to the kind of economic globalization we are creating every single day. So those are just two thoughts that come out of the very important background of this prize and these prize winners. It is incredible, the service that you as journalists and as the press perform. Nobody could be more admiring about this than those of us at Columbia who make it our business to think about these things and teach them. So with that said, let's proceed with the awards, and I think everybody comes up here, right, Josh? Is that? One at a time. Okay. So John Humunik, publisher of the Arizona Daily Star, please come to the podium. You can applaud. No one particular political issue currently creates more emotion and debate in the United States than immigration. In no state has the tumult been greater than in Arizona. And in Arizona, the people living closest to the sector of the U.S.-Mexico border, where more than half of all illegal crossings happen, and where violent criminals smuggle drugs, read the Tucson-based Arizona Daily Star. The Star has fulfilled its responsibilities with distinction. It has run a steady stream of major enterprise stories and series for the last decade that have explored the issue in all its complications and human dimensions, not just its sensational aspects. In a confusing political cacophony of shouting voices in Arizona, the Daily Star is a force for fact-based sanity. The trustees of Columbia University are honored to present the Arizona Daily Star with the Maria Moors Cabot Special Citation for its dedication to the highest principles of journalism and civic responsibility. Congratulations.
Again.
Thank you.
Good evening. On behalf of the Arizona Daily Star and the many journalists over the years who have and will continue to contribute to our newspaper's coverage of the U.S.-Mexican border, doing so with perseverance and journalistic excellence, we thank the Columbia University Board of Trustees for this prestigious honor and recognition. We are humbled by the attention we are receiving and are awed by the large community of previous Cabot Prize winners, the many courageous journalists and leading news organizations we now join. To Lee Bollinger, President of the University, Nick Lehman, Dean of the Journalism School, and Josh Friedman, Director of the Cabot Prize, we are grateful for your comments and warm hospitality. This is truly a memorable night. Thank you. With me tonight is Bobby Joe Buell, our editor, whose guidance and influence shapes the efforts we devote daily to telling the local story of our border with Mexico. And to us, it is a local story. Not the single focus illegal immigration or border security story that quickly energizes political debate and overshadows the realities of living in Tucson, Arizona, our nation's 33rd largest city, a significant university community within an hour's drive of border checkpoints, the border fence, and Nogales. Bobby Joe, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. In the last decade, Arizona has become the busiest and deadliest stretch of the border. A mid-1990s security push beefed up enforcement in Texas and California, funneling smugglers into southern Arizona's harsh desert and deadly heat. Authorities expected the Tucson sector to be a natural deterrent from crossing. It wasn't. By the mid-2000s, nearly half of the arrests of illegal border crossers and seizure of marijuana were being made along our state's 378 miles of border with Sonora. A massive buildup of border agents, fences, and technology followed, altering the environment and making the journey more dangerous for crossers led by smugglers throughout our desert and mountain terrain. More than 2,000 illegal border crossers have been found dead in our region in the last decade. During those years, our editors and journalists helped readers at home and beyond understand what is happening, what it means to them, our country, and Latin America by publishing extensive investigative, enterprise, multimedia reports, and informed commentary. Our dedication to explaining this complex local, national, and international story has never wavered. We asked tough questions of our own government, reported from difficult circumstances, held officials accountable, and brought clarity to an easily misunderstood story. We've also put a face to the people of our region, the many Mexican-American families living and working among us in our diverse community of 1 million people. Through it all, we've told the local story first, engaging our community and public officials in ongoing discussions and shaping the conversation with facts and experiences only gained through journalistic initiative. Again, it is with deep gratitude that I accept the Cabot Prize on behalf of our journalists and share in the celebration of those honored with us tonight. Thank you.
Oswaldo Rodriguez, publisher of El Diario de Juárez, and Ismael Borjoques Perea, publisher of Riodoce. Please come to the podium. Mexico is one of the most dangerous places in the world to practice journalism. 30 journalists in Mexico have been murdered and another 7 have disappeared in the past 5 years, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. Gunmen strafe and throw grenades at media outlets. Death threats are a daily occurrence. In 2 of the most dangerous cities in Mexico, journalists at 2 regional papers heroically struggle to carry on. Oswaldo Rodriguez and Ismael Borjoques Perea, the trustees of Columbia University, are honored to present El Diario de Juárez and Riodoce of Culiacan with the Maria Moors Cabot Prize plaques and certificates to give heart to all those exceptional journalists throughout Mexico, braving death to do their jobs, especially in areas ravaged by drug wars. Thank you very much.
Good evening. When our reporter Armando Rodriguez Carrion was assassinated in Ciudad Juárez on November 13, 2008, for pursuing his work as a journalist, his colleagues at El Diario adopted an attitude exactly the opposite of what his executioners intended. Instead of allowing fear to silence them, they had a meeting with me and proclaimed bravely that they would keep their silenced co-workers' voice alive. They, particularly the female reporters, set out to inform the world about the barbarism that had been taking place in our city since January of 2008. In stark contrast to the stony silence maintained by most of the rest of the press along the border with the United States and in other parts of Mexico, our Diario de Juárez journalists have become an essential source, the sounding box for the havoc wreaked on a civil society by a war that the government drew us into without consulting us. This war is failing miserably because it is limited to arresting the leaders of the drug gangs without attacking their financial structures. The movement and consumption of drugs has not been stopped. The huge demand in the largest market, the United States, continues to grow. What's worse is that Mexico, which used to be a country that only exported the drugs, is now also a consumer. This happened after 9/11, when increased security along the US-Mexico border began to interrupt smuggling, with entire shipments of illegal drugs destined for the United States piling up in Mexico. Traffickers began playing their dealers and assassins in kind. This makes things even worse in our city of Ciudad Juárez, where 9,000 people have died in less than 4 years. 9,000 in less than 4 years. Shocking. Our city is under assault by a plague of extortion, kidnapping, and daily murders. We suffer from a power vacuum, shameful impunity, and police organizations infiltrated to the core by organized crime. In this atmosphere, our journalists have become more vulnerable than war correspondents. They confront intimidation without any protection because of the failure of the government offices dedicated to investigating attacks against freedom of expression. The task of covering this unceasing violence has been of monumental proportions. We are in our own. A year ago, on the 16th of September of 2010, after one of our photographers, Luis Carlos Santiago Orozco, was murdered, I published the editorial, "What Do You Want From Us?" which was read throughout the world. We try to protect our staff through professional training. With our sponsorships, 50 of our members have earned their master's degrees in journalism from prestigious universities in the United States. Our desire has been to be the voice of a society literally devastated by violence. If the fruit of our labor results in awards, they are more than welcome, even when that has not been the aim of our work. Therefore, tonight we feel very honored that Columbia University has chosen us to receive the Maria Moors Cabot Prize. We accept this award in the names of our assassinated colleagues, Armando Rodriguez Carrion and Luis Carlos Santiago Orozco, and in the name of all their co-workers who have made it possible for the whole world to know what's happening in Ciudad Juárez. And now, if you will allow me, I am going to read a brief message from our journalists. The journalists of El Diario de Juárez reiterate the ideas and obligations that we took after the assassination of our colleague, Armando Rodriguez Carrion, that the Mexican state cannot guarantee the fundamental liberties and rights of its citizens, freely conduct business, attend school, eat out in a restaurant, go to a dance club, or support freedom of the press. No one is safe, not even inside their house. Society has been stripped of its spaces and its rights. In this context, journalism has been converted into a high-risk profession, a very grave transition if you consider that freedom of expression is supposed to belong precisely to the people. While in recent years it has been repeatedly said that we are in the middle of a war, covering the violence in Ciudad Juárez is very different than reporting on a martial conflict. The risk is greater because we don't know if we should protect ourselves from the government or from the drug traffickers. In fact, the majority of the attacks that we have suffered have come from public officials, from police agents, or from members of the army. And the worst part is that most of them have gone unpublished. The deaths of Armando Rodriguez and Luis Carlos Santiago were direct attacks on the freedom of the press, the liberty to dedicate oneself to a profession, the freedom to live. We will not back off because to do so would be to allow another abandonment at the cost of our readers. Instead, we continue to honor the memory of our friends and colleagues with even greater dedication and work. Even though Armando and Luis Carlos were victimized, their voices could not be silenced because they reverberated way beyond the international borders and unified their journalistic guild. The best tribute to their memory is our daily journalistic work, and the greatest act of justice that can be committed is the clarification of the facts surrounding their deaths and the punishment for the guilty. Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. Antes que nada, agradezco a la Escuela de Periodismo y a la propia Universidad de Columbia.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I thank the Journalism School, Columbia University, and the jury, this recognition of such a noble and distinguished trajectory. I do it on behalf of all those who have made possible that this tiny paper boat called Riodoce, born almost as a chimera and as a madness that deserved to be fully explored, continues to sail in sometimes turbulent waters, but sometimes, like on this night, in clear waters that herald the promise of a safe harbor. The news of this award fills us with joy, not just for us, but also because we understand that it represents recognition and stimulus for all media and journalists that day after day risk their lives amidst the crossfire between criminal organizations and between these organizations and government forces. Mexican journalism is living nowadays a tragic time. Dozens of reporters have been murdered by drug trafficking gangs in the last few years, and many of our colleagues have been chased, kidnapped, beaten, and threatened, which has provoked a massive self-censorship that has imposed itself today in the newsrooms. That is why the work journalists perform every day in war zones is more praiseworthy, as they know beforehand the risk that their profession entails. And that is why the stimulus we receive today with the Cabot Award is greater still. I told a colleague in Torreon, Coahuila, one of the most dangerous places for journalists nowadays, that were coming to Columbia University to receive the Cabot. I asked her to send a message. She immediately said, "Speak of how the world sees us as a large grave, and how in spite of these conditions, people like your colleagues and like mine still work in a job with no protection whatsoever, not from government and not from society. Speak to them about the unspeakable fear we have from doing our jobs, and about how many have decided to continue trying to evade the horns of that big bull which is drug trafficking, always colluded with the government and now joined by businessmen, many of whom launder money that comes from drugs. We are not here to judge the struggle of President Felipe Calderón against drug trafficking, but we cannot go through this stage without condemning the fact that the Mexican president has never acknowledged the fact that he was wrong, that due to a lack of clear diagnosis and solid strategy, he has led the country towards levels of violence we never had, multiplying pain, suffering, and impunity. Neither are we here to judge the role of the United States in this struggle, but it is clear that their role is failing if we adhere to recent official reports about narcotics consumption here and about the growing expansion Mexican cartels have in the illegal drug market in this country. It is unclear for us what the role of the North American government in this context is, and in any case, we see shadiness in files such as Fast and Furious, Rápido y Furioso, just to name one, whose motivations are not clear enough, not only for the people of North America, but also for Mexicans. That is why we are left with a conviction that can result in, if I may, despair. Not only Mexico is losing the war against drug trafficking, North Americans are also struggling to lose this war, starting to lose this war. And no one starts a war to lose it. Thank you very much.
Y nadie empieza una guerra para ser derrotados. Muchas gracias.
Carlos Dada, please come to the podium. Carlos Dada is the founder and director of El Faro, a vanguard online news website, which he runs from El Salvador, a small country that is still suffering from the trauma of its decade-long civil war. El Faro means lighthouse or beacon, and that's what it is. With a limited budget, it has consistently published outstanding stories and projects, investigating long-ignored crimes and human rights abuses, and now tracking growing drug violence and human rights abuses throughout Central America. From its inception in 1998, El Faro has shown how digital media can overcome barriers of cost and tradition and offer honest journalism of high quality in a region where press standards are low and much of the media is highly partisan or even corrupt. Carlos Dada, the trustees of Columbia University are honored to present you with the Maria Moors Cabot Gold Medal and a plaque for your news organization, El Faro. Congratulations. Looks nice.
Good night, everybody. Gosh, John, this is where I envy your fluency in English. I'm going to try to do my best. It is a big honor to be standing here tonight in a place that has seen some extraordinary people speak after receiving such a distinction as the Maria Moors Cabot Prize. I come from a small Central American country that, of course, we have made our own center of the universe. It's a small country that used to make headlines all around the world in the 80s, when we suffered a cruel civil war that for some historians marked the last battle of the Cold War. A whole generation of journalists from the United States and Europe began their careers in El Salvador. But then, of course, what happened in Central America mattered to a big portion of the world. 2 decades have passed since our war ended, and you don't hear much about us anymore. So let me tell you briefly what is happening there. We went from living with political violence to living with social and criminal violence. And now, officially, we are supposed to be living in peace. But in reality, Central America is now the most violent region of the world, with weak institutions a big inequality gap, lots of guns, rampant corruption, and the rapid and pervasive penetration of yet another form of organized crime, the drug cartels. Of course, there is another way to look at it. It is a place full of stories, stories that deserve to be told. Almost 14 years ago, Jorge Siman, who is there, and I embarked on an adventure. We wanted to offer independent news and treat our readers as intelligent people. But back in 1998, it was only an adventure at most, and not a very promising one. We were born online in a country where less than 2% of the population had access to the internet at the time. Not in our best projections could we imagine that I would be here tonight. And I wouldn't be, in fact, if it were not for the sacrifices, the commitment, and the passion of a group of talented journalists and technicians that have walked with me all the way to where we stand now. A group of people that share the vision that independent journalism is important and are willing to sacrifice many things to keep this vision alive, and some of them are also with me here tonight. My work, our work, comes from indignation, curiosity, and hopes. Indignation facing poverty, corruption, violence, abuses of power, impunity. Curiosity to understand what happens and why it happens. And hopes, of course. Hopes that our world can be a better place for everybody. It is worth noting, even though, as some call us, we might be the deans of online journalism in Latin America, we are who we are because of our content, because we practice journalism in the classical way. The debates in our newsroom deal much more with sources, fact-checking, accuracy, and fairness in a story than with anything else. Technology is the means, but content is the meaning. Independent journalism is, of course, not welcomed by everybody. Some politicians and businessmen regard us as an uncomfortable band of weird guys that just don't understand how the system works. And it's even worse. Actually, we are trying to understand how it works. In a fragile society like ours, with so much violence, corruption, and poverty, our hopes are that good journalism can help our readers make better decisions in their lives and in public life, empower citizens, and push them to become agents of change towards a happier, fairer, and more peaceful society. You may not find in our pages who was killed yesterday, but perhaps if you give us some time, we might be able to tell you why so many people are getting killed in our part of the world. To explain to you how the drug cartels are penetrating our countries, how they take advantage of corrupt officials and institutions, how they build schools and clinics that a state with no resources is not capable of building, or how natural reserve lands ended up in the hands of government officials, or how the gangs turned from the kids on the block to complex criminal organizations. I want to thank Columbia University, its Graduate School of Journalism, and the Maria Moors Cabot Prize Board for encouraging us to continue this journey with this high distinction. To our friends and the organizations that have kept us alive, tonight, I hope, this award confirms that you were not wrong. For our families, who usually pay the biggest price for what we do, I also hope this helps to convince you that your sacrifice is worth it. And to our readers, let me send you a message. We will not stop doing what we do. Thank you very much.
Jean-Michel, Leprince, please come to the podium. Jean-Michel Leprince has brought Latin America to life for Canadians since the 1970s. He has offered vivid and thoughtful French language television and radio reporting on the region for Société Radio Canada CBC. His stories have covered a wide spectrum, ranging from the impact of street gangs in El Salvador and in Guatemala, the drug war in Mexico, the evolution of gay rights in Cuba, to the prosecution of Colombian politicians accused of complicity with illegal paramilitary groups. These are not easy stories to tell, and Leprince does not shy away from trying to explain their complexities. The result is broadcast journalism at its best. It is a fine illustration of what U.S. television viewers have lost since the retreat of U.S. networks from the region. Jean-Michel Leprince, the trustees of Columbia University, are honored to present you with the Maria Moors Cabot Gold Medal and a plaque for your news organization, Société Radio Canada CBC. Congratulations.
First, if you don't mind, we'd like to show you a little piece of the type of reporting we do. Of course, there are small extracts of longer stories, among them that we submitted to the jury of the School of Journalism for the Cabot Prize. So if you are ready, and you can watch this, it's very short. Il y a toujours du monde entre l'arbre et la fontaine, autour des chandelles, à n'importe quel moment de la journée. C'est là que la grenade a explosé. Belém entend la première explosion, et comme tout le monde, elle ne pense même pas qu'il puisse s'agir d'autre chose qu'un pétard ou un feu d'artifice. Mais sous le balcon de l'autre côté de la rue, c'est la panique. Bilan total, 8 morts, plus de 100 blessés. Un mot terrible vient d'entrer pour la première fois dans le vocabulaire quotidien des Mexicains. Narcoterrorisme. La guerre de la drogue n'est plus seulement entre clans, elle tue maintenant à dessein des innocents.
C'est une vraie guerre. Il y a plus de morts au Mexique que dans l'Irak, de forces américaines en Irak.
Les sommets dans cette partie centrale de la cordillère des Andes dépassent les 6000 mètres.
Les sommets les plus élevés marquent la limite entre l'Argentine et le Chili.
Un projet unique à la frontière entre deux pays, l'Argentine et le Chili.
Il n'existe pas de mine partagée entre deux pays ailleurs dans le monde.
C'est dans cette vallée en Argentine que sera acheminé le minerai, qu'il sera traité et transformé en or, argent et cuivre. 80% du gisement se trouve à Pascua, de l'autre côté, au Chili. Tout au bout de la vallée du Huasco, ces montagnes cachent ce qui deviendra vers 2013 une des mines d'or les plus riches du monde, une des plus inaccessibles aussi, Pascua Lama. Un grand défi technologique et financier pour la compagnie torontoise Barrick Gold. Mais la Canadienne rencontre de l'opposition au Chili.
Je crois que les Canadiens ne méritent pas qu'on les appelle les Yankees du futur.
Avec le prix de l'or qui dépasse largement les $1000 l'once, tout devient possible, même le gigantisme de Pascua Lama. Jairo ne veut pas en rester là. 5 mois plus tard, il décide de contacter directement la Cour suprême de Colombie. Cette fois-ci, on le prend au sérieux. 5 jours plus tard, le sénateur Álvaro García Romero est arrêté en novembre 2006. Il est accusé de plusieurs meurtres. Même chose pour son adjoint Éric Maurice. De son côté, le gouverneur Salvador Aranasud est en fuite. Il est recherché par les polices de 134 pays. Les bateaux de croisière européens sont revenus à La Havane après une longue absence. Tout est bon pour relever l'économie en difficulté, même si le gouvernement estimait que les croisières ne rapportaient pas beaucoup. L'État doit aussi réduire ses dépenses. José fait partie des 500 000 Cubains qui perdront leur emploi d'ici le mois d'avril. Il y en aura 1 million de plus à moyen terme. 178 métiers, autrefois souvent pratiqués au marché noir, ont été autorisés. Les paladars, ces restaurants privés, s'ouvrent partout du jour au lendemain. Réparateurs ou constructeurs de vélos-taxis, vendeurs de DVD, de souliers, de vêtements confectionnés maison, jusqu'aux remplisseurs de briquets jetables, il n'y a pas de saut-métier. Mais attention, tous ces gens-là paieront des impôts.
Los cambios que se están proponiendo son muy pequeños y insuficientes.
Ce n'est pas une nouvelle révolution, dit-il. Nous perfectionnons notre révolution. Ce qu'on voit à Cuba ne devrait être que le début de changements économiques majeurs. En ce moment, les Cubains sont consultés dans la rue, sur les lieux de travail, et les résultats, on devrait les connaître au prochain congrès du Parti communiste en avril, le premier depuis 13 ans. C'est là qu'on pourra mesurer l'ampleur du virage qui se dessine. Jean-Michel Leprince, Radio-Canada, La Havane.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a few little sample of great stories we want to cover in Latin America. First, it's a great honor for me to be here and receive this prestigious prize. Merci beaucoup au jury du prix Cabot pour cette récompense fantastique. Merci encore. Looking at your long list of past recipients, I was only able to find one other French-speaking prize winner, Marcel Niedergang of Le Monde in 1983. Not many Canadians have received a Cabot Prize. The last Canadian to win the prize was the Globe and Mail's Paul Knox in 2000. I'm not too surprised. Last year at this microphone, Columbia University President Lee Bollinger stated, Americans are flying blind on Latin America. I would add that Canadians too are flying blind on Latin America. Yet, we all here can testify that it is not for lack of news. Sometimes I feel lonely in that part of the world. Apart from Connie Watson, my CBC English radio colleague now based in Rio de Janeiro, I don't meet Canadians very often. And with the departure of Paul Knox from the Globe and Mail, the most serious Canadian newspaper on international affairs, I feel that even they seem to have abandoned regular coverage of Latin America. On the other hand, they do very well in Asia and in Africa. So what's going on? What is wrong with covering our continent? I'm employed by a public broadcaster, not state-run, but public broadcaster. We cherish our independence from politicians. We are the CBC in English with their headquarters in Toronto, and Société Radio-Canada in French, us, based in Montreal. We broadcast in 2 languages, English and French, all across Canada. That's 4 radio channels, 4 TV channels, plus services in native languages and in the north. It is quite a large country to cover. It's expensive. Public funding has been more or less frozen since I remember in the 37-some years working there. So we have to rely more and more on advertising to function. Money is tight. But even in this difficult context, and there may be more cuts from our conservative government soon, even in this context, our French language networks, radio, TV, internet now, have maintained regular coverage of Latin America. I want to say that it takes courage and vision on the part of management to maintain such coverage when everybody else is cutting back. I would not be here tonight if my bosses, some of them are here, Louis, Catherine, one is not here, Alain, je vous salue, if they didn't have that vision and the will that goes with it. I'd like to thank them. What they do is real public service. Now, being a correspondent means a lot of moving and traveling. It takes a lot of understanding, flexibility, and love on the part of the family. I want to thank my wife, Agnès, who's here, and our great children, with Caroline and Olivier back home, and my parents. And I thank my mother for allowing me lots of freedom to let me be what I wanted. But now, how dangerous is it where you're going? This is a question my family frequently asks. I would just say that I feel, on the whole, pretty safe. In great part, thanks to what we call our fixers, local news people, who know how to keep you safe. Very reliable guys, Guillermo, Carlos, Martin, Pipe, Rodrigo, José, Jacqueline, and others. I want to pay a special tribute to them. I've learned from them and from all the people I met for my stories there throughout the years, the art of courtesy, of patience, and I enjoy the loyalty that comes with their friendship. Abrazos a todos, amigos. Those in our profession who are truly at risk are those who live and work in countries such as El Salvador, Honduras, and especially Mexico. They live in fear of their lives. Those guys need us and our coverage to show the world what they have to deal with. In the past few days, I made friends here. I want to report their stories. I've already asked them, and I want to make the stories, my future stories, about them and with them. Finally, the jury has watched my stories. It takes more than a reporter to make them. You've seen the pictures, the editing. I've had and still have the great pleasure to work with the most competent cameramen, editors, producers in the country. I want to salute them, André, Martin again, Sylvain, Gilbert, Pat, Carl, Georges, Marie-Ève, André, Danny, and before them Pierre and Sylvestre, et tous ceux que j'oublie mais qui savent que je les apprécie beaucoup. Salut mes amis, je prie pour vous aussi. Last but not least, a special thank you to my former colleague Jacques Rivard, who's here, who submitted my name for the Cabot Prize. It was a total surprise for me until the very end. Jacques, merci beaucoup mon vieux. Merci à tout le monde. Thank you to the jury again. It's a great honor.
Last spring, we elected tonight's winners, and I've been waiting since then to meet them in person. They are such an impressive group, inspirational in their courage and humility. I congratulate them, and it's always a wonderful experience to make new friends who are so impressive. Thank you. This night couldn't have been successful without the wonderful work of Lisa Red and Laura Takada, who care so much about doing this prize properly. They're very dedicated to what we're trying to do. And I want to thank their colleagues, especially Tatiana Rivera, who have helped out. And thank you to the students who have helped us out tonight. The young woman who translated Ismael Borges' speech is Claudia del Castillo, de Colombia. She's from the country of Colombia, attending Colombia. These students who are here face one of the most difficult job climates in many years. And I hope that you've had a chance to speak to them. And if so, I hope that you help open the door for them to careers in journalism. They're very dedicated, and they could use every amount of help that we could give them at this point. They're very qualified, and they're very well educated, if I do say so myself, or will be by May and June. I want to recognize a new board member here tonight, Carlos Larrea. We're very grateful he's taking time from his busy job at the Committee to Protect Journalists to help us. And welcome also to June Ehrlich of Harvard, our other new board member. And welcome to all the existing board members who have come to the dinner. I have sad news about another one of our board members, Enrique Zelieri of Peru. Enrique's lovely wife, Daphne, died suddenly last Friday of a heart attack. Some of you knew her, and we extend our condolences to their family. In 2013, 2 years from now, we'll be celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Maria Moors Cabot Prizes. The family members here and others who aren't here are working closely with us to make it a great success. So I hope to see you all at our gala dinner, the 75th in 2013. I hope to see you all here next year as well. Thank you for coming tonight, and have a safe trip home.